Hello, welcome to another video. So today's topic is Envy, or as they were first known when they came into the scene, Envious. Now when they started, they bought the team that was known as LDLC. This team was a French team, had just won a major the year prior, and was comprised of Shox, Smiths, Happy, Kiyoshima and MBK. Now they thought, coming from Call of Duty, this was a slam dunk. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the world, they've just won a major. Small problem, they're French. The French scene at the time is just 1% talent, 99% politics and drama. Players weren't practicing, being as arrogant as a Frenchman can be, I should know. There was constantly players going behind each other's backs, talking shit about each other. It wasn't a great place to be. Eventually this led to Shox and Smiths being swapped out for Kenny S and Apex. Obviously Shox at this time refused to play without Smiths, so if one leaves the other has to. Shox was incredibly unhappy with the way Happy was calling, because Shox really wanted to be a lurker, but that's what Happy does, and if Happy's the in-game leader, Happy's going to lurk. So Shox was forced to play more of an entry role, which he hated, so eventually he left. Now whilst this seems like they're getting off to a bad start, it actually was a good start for Envy, because the two players they brought in were amazing. Kenny S at the time was considered the best AWPer in the world, Apex was a great entry fragger, incredibly explosive, and they immediately went off, 4 months later, and won a major. Brilliant. So far so good, Envy, you're smashing it. Then the problems started arising. Kyo had to be replaced by Devil, who was terrible. I'm going to be polite. Terrible. The reason Kyo had to go was that Kyo was, he lacked motivation, he didn't want to practice as much, didn't get along well with everyone, he was a bit of a problem. They've now got Devil, and they're not winning anything, so they decide it's time to fix the Devil problem. They brought in Sixer. Again, Sixer might have been pretty good as an AWPer in Counter-Strike towards the end of the game's lifespan in 2010 with Millennium. He was considered a pretty good player. But by this point, Sixer was mediocre at best. He wasn't even playing on his favoured weapon, the AWP, in this team, because why would you take Kenny S off the AWP for this granddad? So he was a rifler, and he was very bad. They spent 2016 getting carried by Kenny. Happy was lurking, but at this point, lurking was dead and he was just baiting. So they were terrible, because they spent 2016 playing terribly. MBK felt he could be doing a better job in-game leading, but he never got the chance to. He really wanted to leave. It's just a question of finding the opportunity. And at the start of 2017, these frictions between him and Happy were finally resolved, as over half the team left and went to join Gamers 2, G2, to form the French super team. So Envy have now lost NBK, Kenny S, Apex, and even their analyst, NKJ, to G2, who at the time also had Shox and Smiths, which is why it was called the French super team. Shox plus Kenny S is the ultimate duo of French Counter-Strike at the time. So of course, to replace these massive names, they made some massive signings, bringing in RPK, XMS, and Devo Duvek. Immediately they decided Devo Duvek isn't good enough, so they benched him and signed Scream, who really wasn't that good at the time. In 2017, he was still considered good, he still had some rep in the scene, but he was realistically more of a face, a personality. He had loads of fans on Instagram because he's got nice hair. So they signed him. They carried on being terrible. Throughout 2018, they started rotating through every single mediocre French player they could think of. Seriously, they tried everyone. At this point, they had signed an academy team of just young French players. Anyone with a baguette and a mouse essentially was allowed to play for them, and none of them were really succeeding. The system wasn't in place. They had no real leadership. It was a horrifying mess. All of this could have been avoided if Envy had just decided, let's sign a hands-on GM who can actually manage the team and make some decisions instead of the players. But no, the org was essentially being run by the players, who allowed politics and drama and all that other BS to get in the way of actually winning Counter-Strike. If Envy had been smarter, the French super team would never have played for G2. They were the ones who held all the cards. They had 4 people leave to go make this team. That should never have been allowed. By the end of 2018, they had dropped this mishmash of average French players, but decided they weren't going to leave the Counter-Strike scene. No. Instead, they decided they were just going to leave the French scene, and they went into NACS, a famously successful region in CSGO. They signed X-Splice in 2018, well, in September of 2018, as well as Nifty and JDM, who are both AWPers. Their roster at this point included Cutler, Semphis, Drone, Nifty, JDM. Watch out, Liquid and Cloud9. Envy are coming. Soon, Hastro got tired of making decisions. If Hastro is the owner of Envy, he's an ex-COD player. You know, COD is Call of Duty, the game where you aim down sights and the game aims for you. So he got tired of making decisions, and he said, Nifty, you're going to be the guy responsible for building the team. You get to choose the players that come in and play for my org and take my money. Nifty, of course, being an incredibly smart and resourceful general manager, decided to sign players who got along well personality-wise. So, they may have been good friends, all these players, but they sucked at winning CSGO matches. That being said, they weren't really that good at being friends either, because the team constantly made roster changes. So, throughout 2018 and 2019, they barely had a stable roster, and they won nothing. Like, it feels like hyperbole, but realistically, they won nothing. It was debatable if they were even the 4th best team in North America. Imagine where that puts them relative to the world rankings. They were awful. Late in 2019 and early in 2020, many big NA orgs with lots of money to spend, so orgs who Envy likes to compare themselves to, built massive super teams of international players with the intention of competing at the very highest level. So we have teams like OG who signed their roster that included Mantu, Valde, NBK, you know, a variety of young talents and veteran leaders. We had Complexity with their Blame F, Config, Oboe, Rush roster, you know, all of these examples being set. And Envy were like, yep, that's what we're going to do. The only difference really being that their super team was garbage. They signed Calix, Mihu, and what's his name? Moose, who were all somewhat touted as being potentially good players, maybe. Like, they were all risks. Not a single one was an established pro. None of them were even prodigious talents. But I guess they must have had a good joke to tell Nifty when he met them the first time, and he thought, these guys seem great. So yeah, that's how they built their team. And God. How best to summarize this? Across 2019 and 2020, Envy amassed $44,000 in prize earnings. That's less than my salary across the same time period. Me. Some idiot with no degree and a webcam. How is that a super team? And it must be noted, at this point, Nifty's still on this team. How? How is Hastro's wagon still hitched to this horse? They're awful, and he clearly has no clue what he's doing. Yet, here we are. He still has all this venture capitalist money to splash on random players who probably won't do anything. They peaked at Flashpoint Season 2 by finishing 7th to 8th. It's not exactly a high caliber of opposition they went through to reach that prestigious placement. So basically, thanks to hands-off management and general incompetence, Envy went from world beaters to a dumping ground of washed-up prospects. All of this because they never decided to hire a proper GM who understood the scene and the players available. Thank you for watching. Like and sub, leave a comment. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.